something strange is happening. For decades, we were told that more connection would make us happier. More friends, more conversations, more social networks, more access to more people than any generation in human history. Yet, somehow, the more connected we became, the more exhausted we felt. And now, a growing number of people are doing something that seems completely contradictory. They're cutting people off. They're leaving group chats, ignoring calls, creating distance from relatives, ending friendships they've maintained for years, walking away from relationships they once fought desperately to preserve. And the strangest part? Many of them don't regret it. In fact, they feel better, calmer, lighter, more peaceful than they have in years. How is that possible? How can distancing yourself from people feel like freedom in a world supposedly suffering from loneliness? Is society becoming colder, more selfish, more isolated, or is something deeper happening beneath the surface? Because maybe the real story isn't about people rejecting connection. Maybe it's about people finally rejecting exhaustion. And understanding why begins with a simple truth most people never realize until much later in life. Not every relationship costs the same. There was probably a time when you answered every call, every message, every request. You were available, reliable, helpful. You believed that being a good person meant being there for everyone. When someone needed advice, you listened. When someone needed support, you showed up. When someone was struggling, you carried their emotional weight as if it were your responsibility. At first, it felt meaningful, important, even noble. But over time, something changed. You started noticing patterns. The same people kept bringing the same problems. The same crises repeated themselves. The same conversations happened again and again. You became an emotional emergency room for people who never seemed interested in healing, only unloading. And slowly, almost invisibly, the cost began accumulating. Not in your schedule, not in your bank account, in your nervous system. Most people don't recognize emotional fatigue because it doesn't arrive dramatically. It arrives quietly, as irritation, as dread when a certain name appears on your phone, as relief when plans get canceled, as the growing desire to be left alone. At first, you tell yourself you're just tired, but eventually you realize something more unsettling. You're not tired of life, you're tired of certain people, and that realization changes everything. Modern life places an extraordinary demand on human attention. For thousands of years, social interaction happened within small groups, a few family members, a few close friends, a local community. Today, one person can be connected to hundreds or even thousands of individuals simultaneously. Every notification is a request. Every message is an expectation. Every interaction consumes mental energy. Your brain treats social relationships as work, not necessarily negative work, but work nonetheless. Every conversation requires interpretation, emotional regulation, prediction, decision-making. And when too many relationships become one-sided, emotionally draining, or unpredictable, the brain begins searching for relief. This is where many people misunderstand what is happening. They assume the desire for distance means something is wrong, but often the opposite is true. The desire for distance can be a sign that your mind is recognizing an imbalance. Imagine carrying a backpack. At first, a few pounds feel manageable. Then someone adds another weight, and another, and another. Eventually, the burden becomes normal. You stop noticing it because you've carried it for so long. Then one day, someone removes half the weight. Suddenly you feel lighter. Not because you became stronger, because you finally stopped carrying what wasn't yours. Many relationships function exactly this way. Some people contribute energy, others consume it. Some people bring clarity, others bring chaos. Some people respect your boundaries, others treat your availability as an entitlement. And over time, Your brain becomes remarkably skilled at identifying the difference. This ability often develops through experience, especially painful experience, when trust has been broken repeatedly, when kindness has been exploited, when generosity has been mistaken for weakness. The mind begins collecting data, patterns, signals, warnings. It learns who leaves you feeling energized and who leaves you emotionally depleted. What appears to outsiders as sudden distance is often the result of years of observation, years of noticing, years of hoping things would change, years of giving second chances. By the time someone finally walks away, the decision usually isn't impulsive, it's accumulated, built from hundreds of moments that never felt quite right. And perhaps that's why the relief feels so immediate, because the nervous system finally receives a message it has been waiting for. The source of stress is no longer present. For the first time in a long time, it can rest. Yet this is where an important distinction must be made, because not all withdrawal is healthy. There is a profound difference between boundaries and walls. Boundaries are selective. Walls are absolute. Boundaries say, I value my peace, so I choose carefully who enters my life. Walls say, I've been hurt before, therefore nobody gets access. The first creates safety. The second creates isolation. And the difference between them can determine the quality of your future. Many people who cut others off initially experience tremendous relief. The silence feels therapeutic. The absence of drama feels healing. The freedom feels intoxicating. For a while, solitude becomes sanctuary. And sometimes, that's exactly what's needed. Recovery requires space. Reflection requires quiet. Healing often begins in solitude, but solitude becomes dangerous when it transforms into permanent avoidance. Because despite our frustrations with people, human beings remain deeply social creatures. The goal isn't to eliminate connection. The goal is to improve it. The healthiest individuals are not those who trust everyone, nor are they those who trust nobody. They are the people who learn discernment, the people who understand that access to their lives must be earned, not granted automatically. As we grow older, many of us begin noticing another unexpected shift. Our tolerance decreases, not because we're becoming bitter, because we're becoming aware. The behaviors we once ignored become impossible to overlook. Manipulation becomes obvious, dishonesty becomes visible, emotional immaturity becomes exhausting. We stop confusing familiarity with loyalty. We stop confusing history with compatibility. We stop maintaining relationships solely because they've existed for a long time. And this can be unsettling, because society often celebrates quantity. More followers, more friends, more connections. But meaningful relationships have never been a numbers game. 1,000 shallow connections cannot replace a handful of genuine ones. One honest conversation can be worth more than years of superficial interaction. One trustworthy friend can provide more emotional security than dozens of acquaintances. Eventually, many people reach a realization that changes their entire perspective. Peace has value, not temporary comfort, not avoidance, not numbness. Peace. The kind of peace that allows you to think clearly, sleep deeply, breathe freely. Be yourself without constantly managing someone else's emotions. And once you experience that peace, it becomes difficult to surrender it. Not because you become selfish, because you've learned how expensive chaos truly is. Perhaps the greatest misconception about people who walk away is the belief that they stopped caring. But often the opposite is true. They cared too much for too long. They gave too much, tolerated too much, excused too much, hoped too much. Until eventually, they reached a limit. A point where self-preservation became necessary. A point where continuing the relationship required abandoning themselves. And at that moment, the choice became clear. Not easy, not painless, but clear. Because there comes a time when protecting your peace is no longer an act of rebellion. It's an act of survival. The people who truly belong in your life will not require you to sacrifice your mental health to keep them there. They will not demand unlimited access. They will not punish your boundaries. They will not make peace feel guilty. Instead, they will respect your limits, value your presence, and contribute to the calm you're trying to build. Those relationships don't drain you. They strengthen you. And once you've experienced that difference, you can never fully return to the chaos you once accepted. The question was never why cutting people off feels better than ever. The real question is why so many people tolerated relationships that made them feel worse for so long. Distance is not always rejection. Silence is not always loneliness. A smaller circle is not necessarily a poorer life. Sometimes growth looks less like expanding your world and more like refining it, removing what no longer belongs, protecting what truly matters, choosing quality over quantity, and understanding that peace is not something you find, it's something you protect. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on one question. Who in your life brings you peace, and who constantly steals it? The answer may reveal more about your future than you realize. Leave a comment and share your perspective. And remember, you don't owe everyone access to your life, but the people who genuinely care about you will never make you regret giving it.